This is the latest edition of Front Up, and I'm Whitey Willauer, and I've got a very, very interesting guest here today, Mr. Richard Ray of the Health Department. Are you the health director, or are you the czar of all of the health issues?
No, czar doesn't work.
It doesn't work?
No, health director's a good thing.
Okay. And how did you get this into this position? How long have you been there? Too long?
32 years next month.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And what are some of the things that you're facing now that are really difficult? Maybe it's not.
We face a number of issues on any given month. We literally swing from a truly public health department to an environmental health department because we have to, and it happens weekly. There are any number of issues. You can't pin an issue down to a week at a time.
Okay.
We are big enough that we deal with these sort of overall issues. Obviously, last month there was a big push to address the H1N1 and the seasonal flu clinic that we had, and to get that set up and to get that organized.
That went very well, it must be.
It went extremely well, other than the fact that, once again, the state of Massachusetts was enabled to provide us with the vaccine that we had been promised for the second year in a row. We're hoping that a second batch will be provided to us, and we will be having a second clinic where we can truly include all of the school children and the parents.
So you were only able to do a certain part of the community.
We only had 500 doses. We were promised 1,200 and only had 500.
Really? I got in early and I got my dose, but it went very smoothly.
Well, yeah, we pride ourselves in the fact that we've got this down to a well-oiled machine. It works extremely well. Hats off to those nursing individuals who did the inoculations and the pharmacy people, because not one soul there was paid anything. It's all done by volunteer services.
That's right.
And these people rise to the occasion when needed, which is part of the wonderful concept of the emergency preparedness program on this island. The volunteers are amazing. What we can get done in the course of a matter of hours is fabulous, and we really roll that show out when we have to, and that works quite well also.
Now, another issue that I think is in the top of your list would be water quality. What's happening in that arena?
Well, we have just initiated the promulgation of the watershed protection district surrounding Hummock Pond and north head of Hummock Pond. We're in the process now of informing all the lovely people that live in that area that they're going to have their septic systems inspected, some within a year, some within 2 years. And should there be issues with those systems, they're going to have to be repaired. We are finishing up the Mattocket Harbor Watershed Protection District. We've got a couple of months to go on that. Looks like that's going to get very busy over the next 2 months with inspections. And we are finished with the Nantucket Harbor Watershed Protection District, and we are starting to go into that district and try to make some determinations as to some positive moves within that area.
Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about the estuaries program. What is the estuaries program?
I knew you were going to do this.
Well, then you should have been prepared.
I am prepared. The estuaries program is a state-sponsored program where the scientific community is allowed access into our harbors to ascertain what the problems are, how bad the problem is, and how to fix it. To an extent of how to fix it. Kind of gives us an opportunity to work with them on the fixation of some of these issues. Again, this is very dependent upon a large group of volunteers to do water sampling and research for us, but it's paid off big time in the Nantucket Harbor watershed. It's paid off substantially in Mattocket Harbor, and it will do the same for Hummock Pond.
And what kind of big things would you imagine would come out of this estuaries program? In other words, changes.
The biggest word that you hear out there now is sewer.
Yeah.
I think in some cases it's a reality. In some cases it's a little bit short of reality. Nantucket Harbor, there's a reality factor there. I think we've got to look at sewering out to Gardner Road and in the Shimo area. I think that's where most of the houses are. That certainly is something that can be done relatively quickly. Again, it depends on funding, and this is a bad time of the century to look at funding. Sewering Mattocket is certainly, without question, the answer to solving Hither Creek's problems. Is it a reality? I'm not convinced yet, but I'm certainly a proponent.
Yeah. Now, what about things like, do you involved with ticks and mosquitoes and things like that? Is that part of your...
That's part of the public health realm.
Okay.
Sure. With regard to tick-borne disease, we have our tick-borne disease committee that is functioning. We have, at this point, submitted some recommendations to the fisheries and wildlife folks regarding the hunting season. Nothing drastic, nothing major. We are trying to foster some goodwill and some cooperation between those individuals who own large tracts of property, who have historically posted those and kept people from hunting those. That would be a great asset to break into those properties. With individuals who have been trained and properly educated to do the right thing in small numbers. Sure, a lot of public education is going to be arriving on people's doorsteps this spring and summer in the form of a lecture series, again, public handouts, things that are available in guest houses, lodging houses for information, things of that nature.
Now, I've heard there's a fertilizer committee in operation. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on there?
He's heard. He's been there every time we've met. Yeah, there is a fertilizer committee meeting, a group that meets. We are in the process of, they are in the process of formulating two documents. One is a local regulation that will theoretically be enforced through the Board of Health. The other is a home rule petition, which pretty much parallels the regulations, but will be submitted to the state for state approval.
And that committee, is it, what kind of people do you have on that committee?
Fertilizer committee?
Yeah.
We have a cross-section of interested individuals. We have the general public, landscapers, college professors, the general public. It's a pretty well-mixed group of about 12 or 13 people, and are hard at work almost every other Tuesday, bringing this to fruition.
And the idea is to limit the amount of fertilizers that get into the harbor and other watersheds? Is that where they're
Precisely.
going?
Not only limit them, but change the character of fertilization on this island. We want to go to organics and less thereof. We want to try to decrease the amount of nutrient loading of our harbor, and this is another great tool that we can use as part of the. This came out of part of the estuary study, and this is why we do things like this.
And I heard somebody mention the other day that you're going to measure the nitrates with an instrument that can show it hour by hour by hour. Is that coming up?
Not as far as I'm concerned, it's not coming up. That's an expensive instrument. That's something that I don't see as necessary at this point. I really think public education is the way to go with this.
Now, what's happening as far as completing all of the inspections of the sewers in Matticat? Where do you stand with that?
We are probably in the process of finishing up the last 100 or so septic systems that need to be inspected. We've got 2 months to do it. Is it going to happen in 2 months? I'll tell you, by the workload on my desk going out there trying to do 4 and 5 inspections at a time, we could come very close. It's very much like Nantucket Harbor, where people kind of held off toward the end, and we're going to try to move it along.
Now, is Nantucket Harbor completed, or you got a few standouts?
Nantucket Harbor is, I think I can safely say Nantucket Harbor is done. We may have 1 or 2 holdouts, but I don't believe as of this week that we do.
Now, how do we compare as far as our water quality with other locations in the state?
I think we're probably a little bit better than most. We have fewer number of water quality issues, and that we only have a number of water bodies that are adversely affected right now. But they're large water bodies. It's Nantucket Harbor and Matticat Harbor. There are places on the Cape that have small estuaries, smaller harbors that have bigger problems. But I like to think mitigating this issue is going to be certainly less expensive and certainly less time-consuming than it is on the mainland and on the Cape, which is the primary focus of the estuaries program. Because we got a big jump start on this. We became proactive with regard to septic inspections at least 5 or 6 years ago. Something no other town in the Commonwealth has done. So we're out front with that. That's going to have a big impact on or has had an impact on the estuaries program associated with Nantucket Harbor, and will with regard to Mattocket Harbor.
And I've heard that we were one of the few places that actually has along the coast has an active sewer system. Now, our sewer system is what, 100 years old in places?
Parts of it are 100 years old, but those parts are gradually being upgraded. We actually had a substantial upgrade in the busiest section, which was the town of Nantucket itself, probably 5 or 6 years ago, when they replaced all of those pipes, lined all of those mains. And even before that, I can remember a lovely summer back in the 80s where the DPW director at that time, Donnie Oliver, and I spent most of our time up around the bottom of, up by the Lily Pond, pulling houses out of storm drains. Houses' lines, literally the plumber would just go out into the street with a sewer line and tie into the first line he found, and that was usually the storm drain and not a sewer line. And so once we did that, Children's Beach and the Francis Street Beach area counts dropped substantially, and we really haven't had a problem since.
That's great, because I remember back when, didn't you have to close these beaches at one time?
We would close those beaches routinely, particularly after a very heavy rain. And now, this is the best water quality summer we have ever had.
Really?
Ever. Yep.
And what is that going to do to the scallop population? In other words, we've got a difficult year with the scallops. How much of a factor is the water quality for scallops?
Notice the blank look on my face. I'm not going to answer that, because I believe your next guest probably will be much more informed about that than I ever will. How many people showed up at the Scallopers Ball?
450.
And they said they had 300 scallops. How did you manage that?
300 scallops?
Yeah. Never mind.
We actually had 30 pounds of native scallops. But it was
natives. Oh, okay.
It was.
There was always some question about coming in from Chatham. I don't know.
No. These were fished last year, frozen and served.
Okay.
We just we'll
be fine.
We used Nantucket scallops. Really?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have you got any questions you want to ask me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
What's with this?
Front up.
Front up. Shouldn't that be up front?
No, it's Australian for standing up.
Oh, I'm sorry, we've moved. And you know, I got to tell you, it's nice to see a new person sitting behind that chair since the last time I was in here. It's not that reassuring that the Halloween furniture is still here, but it's nice to see your wonderful face sitting here.
Well, I'm glad to see your wonderful face, as I see it very often around town. And I really appreciate your coming in, Richard, and keeping us informed.
He told me I had to be here. He told me.
And there's a lot of people that watch this, so you'll get a lot of feedback.
3, 4.
5. No.
5.
There are people that watch all of these shows. I'm amazed at the number of people that do.
I did a thing a number of years ago for NPR radio about the days when I was driving taxi on this island.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done one of those in probably 8 years, and they're still playing them. The notoriety I don't need anymore.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you, sir.
Right.